I think there's a lot of education that comes with a site like Reddit, and it is a different sell. So not only do you have to go to the agency and say, okay, here's how this site Reddit works. And when they ask a question like, well, what happens if some user votes up a story that says this brand is lame? And you have to say, well, the smartest thing they could do is have someone who's reading Reddit or is willing to be notified when this happens and gets in on the comments and says, they create the username that's like brand X representative. And then they get into the comments and they don't stoop to like trollish flame war levels, but they actually have the discussions. And it's, what's so frustrating is so many small companies, I'm talking one or two, small businesses, one or two person small businesses have done this so incredibly well on Reddit. I mean, soap companies, hot sauce companies, random software, hosting companies have done this brilliantly. And the only reason their benefit from benefit to dollar ratio is phenomenal. And the only reason they can get away with this, and the only reason they can do this so effectively is because they actually use Reddit. Like, they actually understand the community. They're participants in it. And it always frustrates me whenever some social media guru gets on stage or tries to convince some company that they need to be hired, when especially in the larger companies, there must be someone there who's spending a good part of their day actually in the Reddit community. Make her your social media guru. That's it. If you just tell her, listen, you're getting some new responsibility now. Here are the things you're allowed to say. Here are the things you're not allowed to say. Anytime our company comes up, have a discussion. Say it, and give them the freedom. And I'm sure that is scary as all hell for every publicly traded company, and I don't know the jack about running one of those. But it's been great watching smaller businesses have a field day, because businesses are being saved on Reddit because people come onto that site with candor, and they're business people just like some suited a publicly traded company. They're working at a for-profit company, but they're doing it as Redditors. And the difference that makes is just phenomenal. And so, we try really, really hard to work with these advertisers, and some have been much better than others, and been willing to, to go that extra level, to do a bit of legwork on their end, or have a bit more openness on their end. And I think it's paid off tremendously. So for the 3 years that I was there and that Steve was there, we had a ludicrous amount of autonomy. And we would come in for quarterly meetings, and we would present a couple of slides that showed traffic, and that showed, fortunately, that always went up, and that showed what we were going to work on, what we did work on, and what we will work on. And that was it. We'd have some discussion, and then we'd go back to California. And that was wonderful. That was really, really splendid. I think we'd made an agreement, and the reason why it was such a palatable acquisition for us was because we'd heard so many horror stories. You can't walk 2 feet in the Bay Area or in Silicon Valley, or in any startup community, and not hear about a horror story about some acquirer crushing the souls of the company they bought. And this oftentimes happens at tech companies. So imagine what we were thinking when a publisher like Condé Nast wanted to acquire us. We thought, well, what do they know about tech? They're going to have no idea how to deal with engineers, how to deal with all that stuff. But to their credit, they said, listen, you guys are doing something well. That's why we want to buy you. So logically, we'll let you continue doing what you're doing under the auspices of our company now. You'll get health insurance. You'll get a salary, which was nice. And you'll actually just operate as you were before, except you'll have a nice office instead of your crappy living room. And we said, okay, that seems like a good deal. And for the most part, absolutely lived up to it. And I think I can assure you, Steve would not have stuck around for 3 years if that weren't the case. And he did. And I did too. So where I think things got trickier though is when it came to actually monetizing Reddit. That is something that they've still not been able to figure out. The team has come up with some great stuff in the way of self-serve sponsored headlines, Reddit Gold, different other ways to bring in revenue and merchandise. But it is a tricky proposition, but also a really frustrating one, because Reddit has a fantastic audience, one with, 300 million page views a month? It's absurd how much traffic Reddit has. And so it's just a matter of finding a way to say, all right, we have 300 million impressions of a very, very connected, very thoughtful, very just impressive audience. How do we advertise to them in a way that isn't screwing them as a user, and at the same time providing enough value to an advertiser to want to do it? And I think it can be done, but we're still working on that.